This is the news in detail on the hour from the WR Newsroom. The added words today from both sides of the election battle for the White House clearly pointed out that there are few, if any, issues on which the Republican and Democratic ticket members are in harmony. Vice President Agnew told the Veterans of Foreign Wars Convention in Minneapolis that Senator McGovern's call for amnesty for draft evaders would tear the country apart. And Agnew declared,
"Those who chose to serve, thousands died for their choice. And until this war is over and until we get the POWs back, those who chose to desert their country can live with their choice, and that is my attitude," said the President.
Senator McGovern was in Washington today. He said the Nixon administration is afraid to deal with the real issues of increased unemployment, doubled welfare rolls, tax reform. And the Democratic presidential candidate hinted that he was ready to eliminate his proposed $1,000 grant to every American as a welfare reform measure. McGovern told some of his labor supporters that the Democratic administration would put the number one emphasis on a job for every man and woman in the country who is able to work. McGovern campaign aide Pierre Salinger, the former press secretary to the late President Kennedy, accused the Nixon administration today of intimidating the news media. Salinger said that after President Nixon's 45-minute nomination acceptance speech at the Republican convention Wednesday night, neither of two television networks that he had watched had commentaries on the speech. Salinger said this lack of comment was an index of how successful the administration has been in quieting the press. Perhaps he should have been listening to WR radio, where there was commentary. Salinger also charged that the president with holding fewer press conferences than any other chief executive. The fact is, in modern times, remarked Salinger, I think it's unfortunate that the president does not allow himself to be questioned by the press. China, the newest member of the United Nations Security Council, tonight vetoed UN admission of the new nation of Bangladesh. China's ambassador, Huang Hua, was the only council member to vote against admitting the recently independent nation on the Indian subcontinent. What's behind the communist government veto? Huang said the Soviet Union friendship and military alliance treaty with India is part of social imperialism and is playing a most insidious role in development of the situation in the South Asian subcontinent. India fully supported the Bangladesh war for independence from Pakistan. South Vietnam's military reported that its soldiers recaptured the town of Khe Sanh today, a strong point in the North Vietnamese-occupied Khe Sanh Valley. The South Vietnamese general who commanded the forces in the valley has been formally dismissed from his command because he lost control of the area to the enemy. Heavy fighting continued today on two sides of Saigon. We'll have more news after this. See your local General Tire specialist for a great pre-Labor Day buy on the famous General Jet Whitewall tires. Prices start as low as $29.90 for a pair of these long mileage tires in popular size 650 by 13 tubeless Whitewall. Federal excise tax $175 per tire, and larger sizes of the General Jet Whitewall are comparably priced. Now, if you've been thinking of buying new tires before the holidays, stop in and see this tire. The General Jet has 4 full plies of tough nylon cord, Duragen tread rubber for long mileage, General's famous dual tread design, and slim white wall styling. That's at your local General Tire headquarters, where you see the big red General Tire G and mount a pair or set of those long mileage General Jet white wall tires. See Chet Mount or Tom Steele of General Tire Service, 400 Rawway Avenue, Elizabeth, New Jersey. WRAM Radio News Time is 4 minutes after 11 o'clock. The Queens District Attorney's Office reported tonight that a woman suspect had surrendered in connection with the shooting of an off-duty city policeman. The suspect surrendered at the Queens County Courthouse. She said that she had met Patrolman Ralph Harris shortly before the 3 a.m. shooting. According to newsmen at the courthouse, the woman admitted shooting Harris with his own gun in a car at 109th Avenue and 157th Street in Jamaica. Harris was last reported in poor condition with a stomach wound at Queens General Hospital. The girl in custody for the shooting is 15 years old and says she is a prostitute. Mayor Lindsay has been asked to stop construction of the low-income Forest Hills housing project until the City Board of Estimate decides on whether to alter the project. Both City Controller Abraham Beam and City Council President Sanford Garelick urged Lindsay to halt the construction. Garelick said that indications are that the project's groundwork is nearing a point of no return. and this tends to make a farce of honest efforts to negotiate a settlement. The mayor has approved a compromise that would halve the project's size. A federal district court in Buffalo has issued a permanent order against New York State's policy of compelling welfare mothers with dependent children to receive their checks in person at social service centers. Today's order from a 3-judge court gives the state 60 days to start mailing checks to the welfare recipients. We'll have more news in a moment.
Can you imagine having my first beau and his wife for dinner last night? I haven't seen him for 11 years.
You seemed a bit edgy yesterday morning. You should have taken aspirin.
But I didn't have a headache. I felt a bit edgy, so I took Compose.
Compose, famous for temporary relief of occasional simple nervous tension.
Well, they were just charming at dinner.
A bit edgy at times? Help take the edge off with Compose.
Honey, we're just going to the club dance. Why the garden hat?
It's pretty.
Pretty. Come on, what's with your head?
Dandruff. And I used a dandruff shampoo 2 days ago.
Well, maybe yours is tougher than plain dandruff.
It can be psoriasis. See your doctor. Sorex medicated shampoo used regularly helps relieve flaking and scaling. Sorex. P-S-O-R-E-X. Tougher than plain dandruff.
Going to the club dance without that hat?
I used my head and Sorex.
Sorex shampoo. Tougher than plain dandruff.
This WOR program reminder, Long Island's job problem is the topic tomorrow night at 7:30 on Inside Long Island, when host Bob Brady talks with Joseph Gavin Jr., president of the Grumman Aerospace Corporation, the builder of the 4th and final orbiting astronomical observatory launched Monday. Now, Long Island's biggest employer faces major cutbacks, a serious threat to Long Island's economy. Listen tomorrow night at 7:30 to Inside Long Island over WRAM 710. The abortion question. It was put to 1,500 people last June by the Gallup polling organization, and tonight, Gallup said that the survey shows that 2 out of every 3 Americans interviewed think that the question of whether to have an abortion should be decided solely between a woman and her physician. The Gallup poll also said that 73% of those interviewed agreed that professional birth control information, services, and counseling should be made available to unmarried teenagers. And according to Gallup, 56% of the Roman Catholics questioned also favored the abortion statement, and 68% backed teenage birth control. Today, the Nassau County Medical Center said that it would await directions from the county attorney before obeying a federal court order on Medicaid abortion. The court had ruled that Medicaid can be used for abortions despite a ban on that service by New York State Social Service Commissioner. The attorney who successfully argued the challenge to the ban, Jerome Seidel, said that he will move to cite Nassau County and its hospital officials for contempt of the court order if they do not comply with it or appeal it by Monday. The state ban on Medicaid abortions was in effect for 16 months before that court ruling. Even then, at least 27,000 abortions were paid for by the state's Medicaid program. This report, according to a spokesman for the State Social Services Department, the abortions were performed because the department accepted judgments from physicians that the pregnancy terminations did qualify under the Medicaid program. New Jersey's Racing Commission announced today that it's begun an investigation into charges that Riva Ridge was drugged before the August 5th running of the Monmouth Invitational. Riva Ridge was the favorite in the race. He finished 4th. Commission chairman said that effective immediately, every favorite beaten in a race will be subject to a test as well as the winner. We'll have more news after these notes from our WR community calendar. The Newark Daycare Center will open a daycare program for infants ages 1 and 2. That center will be located at 15 East Kinney Street, and the opening date, September 11th. Hurry and register your child. The center can accommodate only 24 children, and spaces are filled on a first-come, first-served basis. For information, call Mrs. Pauline Mathis at 201-344-1762. You can't vote if you haven't registered. You can't serve on a jury either. Any citizen who will be 18 by November 8th and has lived in New York State for at least 30 days can register to vote. But street registration ends on September 2nd, so call First Vote at 593-8296 and call now. WRAM Radio News Time, 10 minutes after 11 o'clock.
This is Merle Harmon.
And this is Sam DeLuca.
And we'll be bringing you New York Jets football live every game on WOR AM radio.
The Jets play the Dallas Cowboys tomorrow at 8:35.
Jet action tomorrow at 8:35 on WOR AM radio.
More news. In a bold new plan to provide employment for rehabilitated mental patients, Howard Samuels announced that the new off-track betting office to be open in Queens in October will be staffed by former patients from Creedmoor State Hospital. Samuels explained that the purpose of the plan is to provide jobs for former patients and outpatients when other employers will not hire them. WR's John Scott asked Samuels whether customers at the new betting office will know that they are being served by Creedmoor graduates.
Not in reality. Those kind of things tend to go through a neighborhood, but we've had no problem with the offices that we've had run by addicts who are under care, because in reality these people are rehabilitated, and what they need is an opportunity. And if society doesn't provide them with an opportunity, their chance of relapse is obviously much greater. They need the dignity of useful work. And what we're proving is that with the support of creative agencies who will provide the counseling, and we wouldn't do this if it was any extra cost to the taxpayers, but we're getting counseling help from Creedmoor, as we are getting in our attic offices counseling help from Vera Institute of Justice. We think that these are the kind of things that we can do and prove that profits and social change can go on at the same time.
The draw is no road to success for world chess champion Boris-Spassky. Today, another tie, the result of the latest game between Spassky and challenger Bobby-Fischer. And just like the previous game, Spassky made the same move 3 times, and that enabled Fischer to call for the draw. Fischer now has 10.5 points to Spassky's 7.5 in the competition. If Fischer gets 12.5 before Spassky reaches 12 points, Fischer is the new world's title holder. Sports. Yonkers Raceway, Daily Double, number 6, off-track betting, letter F. Jefferson Gal, number 1, OTB, letter A, Pat Tar. Feature, number 3, OTB, letter C, Keystone Pat. Baseball in the American League, Yankees split a doubleheader. They beat Kansas City 4-1. Then Kansas City took the nightcap 5-1. Boston 4, Texas nothing. Milwaukee, Chicago, Detroit, Minnesota rained out. In the National League, Atlanta beat the Mets 2-1. San Francisco bombed Chicago 11-2. Pittsburgh 3, Los Angeles 2 in 12 innings. Second game, Los Angeles 3, Pittsburgh 2 in the 7th. Another doubleheader, St. Louis beat San Diego 7-4 in the opener, and it's St. Louis 6-1 over San Diego in the second inning of the second game. Cincinnati 6, Philadelphia 1, Montreal and Houston 3-3 in the 8th inning. Stocks closed mixed today in light trading. New York Exchange volume 13,840,000 shares. Losers outnumbering gainers 825 to 566, 358 unchanged. Dow Jones Industrials closed up 0.98. Transportation down 0.20, utilities down 0.45. Price of an average big board common share dropped 15 cents. American Exchange sales 3,150,000 shares. Losers ahead of the gainers 509 to 352, 304 unchanged. Amex index down 0.03. The WOR Weather Watch update for this hour: warm, hazy, quite humid tonight, lows in the low 70s. Partly sunny, hot and humid tomorrow, highs around 90. Warm, hazy, and humid again tomorrow night, and the lows again in the low 70s. Partly cloudy, very warm and humid on Sunday, with showers and thunder showers likely, the highs near 90. Current temperature, 78 degrees, humidity 72%, wind southwest 9 miles an hour, the barometer 30 inches and steady, and the THI 75. The top of the news at this hour. Vice President Agnew says McGovern's call for draft dodger amnesty would tear this nation apart. McGovern says that if he's elected, he would put number 1 emphasis on a job for everyone able to work. China rejects United Nations admission of Bangladesh with a Security Council veto. 15-year-old girl who says she is a prostitute surrenders in connection with early morning shooting of off-duty New York City patrolman. City Council President and Controller ask Mayor Lindsay to halt the Forest Hills housing project until the Board of Estimate decides on further plans. That's the latest from the WOR Newsroom. Lester Smith reporting. Editor for the 11 o'clock news, Charles Finley.